Welcome, everyone, to 1819 News, the podcast. Bryan Dawson, CEO of 1819 News and host of this here podcast, where we are in a pursuit of a free and flourishing Alabama every single week. And this week is no different. We are down in Point Clear again. You guys might be getting used to this, doing a live podcast at the Point Clear Republican Women Group. Man, we always have fun. The interviews are great. They always perform exceedingly well. And this time we're interviewing Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth, and we're going to be diving into all kinds of different topics. And so with that, I want to welcome in Will Ainsworth.
Yeah, always. First, good to be here. I think I was the first speaker when y'all started this club, and wow, look at how much it's grown. But I want to say this. I love Baldwin County, love the fact that y'all keep it bright red Republican, and really appreciate everything the Republican women and the Republicans do. And I want to say this, too. 1819 is making a difference in conservative politics, speaking truth. So let's give Bryan and his staff a round of applause for what they do.
Thank you, Will. One of the things I want to open with, too, in light of the happenings with, July 13th, 2024, we saw President Trump get shot in the head. I mean, that's what happened. There's no other way to describe that. And then a couple weeks ago, we saw Charlie get shot. And so I want to thank and give a big round of applause to all the law enforcement and security people who are here, help keeping this group, and the people who put themselves out there to represent conservative values. So big thank you to you guys. So we'll jump in. I want to describe kind of my relationship with Will and what I've seen from him. I came into state-level politics in the state of Alabama kind of as one of those people that was just wanting to throw Molotov cocktails at everything, burn it all to the ground. Everybody's, squishy establishment rhinos, and I was about 80% right. But, I'm just kidding. But there are a good percentage of people who are actually, and once we really dove in and found who is consistently doing good things, there are people who are down there fighting and doing what's necessary. And so the biggest thing that I saw in Will was a person who is a absolute principled, courageous conservative who knows how to get things done. You got to have your guys that are barn burners, that are holding the line, that are making a scene so that the line doesn't move. But you also have to have people who know how to create relationships and get things done. And as Lieutenant Governor is not what it was when Steve Windham was Lieutenant Governor, right? It was a defanged position. They've kind of went through and taken a lot of the teeth out of the power of the Lieutenant Governor. Yet Will, even with them taking the teeth out of the position, was able to work behind the scenes, creating relationships, communicating conservative points, and showing people why these policies make sense, whether it was the grocery tax cut, whether it was school choice, and some of the stuff we talked about before, is a guy who's behind the scenes getting things done. It's one thing to say a bunch of crazy stuff into a camera, which I get to do all the time, about how this, that, or the other thing. It's another to go out there and do the hard work of creating relationships and getting things done. And so big round of applause for that. I also want to commend him for calling people out that people are scared to death to mess with, okay? So Will has called out ALDOT and John Cooper relentlessly. That's not a guy that many people want to mess with. He's a bit like a mafia boss, if you saw how the whole bridge thing was handled down here, but I digress. But he called him out when he needed to be called out, not out of spite or any personal relationship stuff. When he's doing something wrong, Will's going to call him out on it. The AEA, recently the AHSAA, and also violent trannies, okay? Also calls those out and puts himself out there to speak truth when it needs to be spoken. So thank you, Will, for being that person for the state.
Yeah, I mean, I think, early on, got elected to the House in 4 years, and a motto I always had that I think, hopefully every elected official had: if you know what you believe, it's easy to vote, right? And so for me, it's always been easy because I, knew what I believe. It's based on biblical principles. It's based on conservative values. I'm, never known anything other than being Republican. That's all my parents were. So for me, I was raised conservative, raised to be a Christian. So for me, that's where my beliefs and values come from. As far as lieutenant governor, our goal was simple, right? I think in anything in life, it's what you make it. My goal was to be the most active lieutenant governor in the state's history. And so what did we do? We started out going all over the states, talking to Republicans, talking to businesses, finding out what can we do to help you as lieutenant governor. Because the best ideas don't come from me, they come from the people, right? And you think about all these different ideas, right? I know, you talk about the military stuff. We talked about that earlier. The best ideas come from people that served in the military. They come from our veterans, right? And the fact we were able to get more bills passed in the state of Alabama, close to 50 pieces of legislation to help our military families in the last 7 years. But that's huge, right? And that's making a difference for our families. You talk about, why did we do the grocery tax cut? Because I wanted to pass a tax cut that could impact everybody. And so as lieutenant governor, I had power of the gavel, right, which I preside over the Senate, can use that. And then you also have, the bully pulpit of your office, which I have just, decided early on I'm going to use. And so I get engaged in Twitter. I call people out. I try to speak truth. And, with that, we're able to shape the narrative and the conversation. And so, when Biden was president, I felt like, people were suffering, honestly. Every day, hard-working Alabamians were struggling to pay their bills. So we, passed the grocery tax cut. On school choice, it's just simple. I believe parents know what's best for children and should decide what's best for their child. We wanted that. And I want to say this. None of this stuff, I did by myself, right? It was a team. You talk about on school choice, Terry Lathan led a huge charge with people. Let's give her a round of applause. But she did. She had that. And so the other thing, not only did I want to be the most active, I wanted to have relationships with people and build a team and a coalition. And it's amazing what happens when you get a bunch of people on board with a good idea that's conservative. You have news media to back you up and push it, and you can get things done. So, look, I've loved being lieutenant governor. I'll be lieutenant governor until January of 27. We're going to continue to fight hard. We've got a package of bills we're working on for next session. And I also have been fortunate to have great staff. Where's Catherine Gale? Y'all, Catherine Gale's in the back. She's our chief of staff. She is amazing. You talk about a conservative person that she went to Samford, she got her master's, she's working on her doctorate. You talk about somebody making a difference that's a Republican woman in this state that shapes every conversation just about on policy. That's Catherine Gale, and she's making sure that she keeps our state conservative. So also having a great team makes a difference. Catherine Gale, proud of you. So anyway, honored to serve, and it's been a lot of fun. Look forward to the next year. Next session will be a good ride.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've been in the headlines quite a bit lately. I think the biggest thing that I think it ties into the school choice conversation, which I think is when you look from a policy standpoint at a state level that's not a federal thing, school choice I think is going to be one of the most revolutionary things if we look back in 20 years and we see the difference it made for families like mine. I have 7 children, and I've got 2 children who are going to a classical Christian school that we couldn't have afforded if it wasn't for the work that you did, wasn't for the work that Terry did. And I texted you guys both. I was sitting in the chapel that morning, and the 2 texts that I sent was one to you, and you guys are both here right now, so I just think that's great. Thanking you guys for the work on that. But we also know that we are in Alabama, and there's a really big thing called football and athletics, right? And the Alabama High School Athletics Association is trying to prevent people who are participating in school choice from being able to participate in athletics that first year, claiming that it's going to cause recruiting and all this other stuff. And you have been very outspoken against that. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I want to make sure y'all understand this. So we worked hard to pass school choice. And, you take somebody, think about this, a military family member moves to Montgomery. They're zoned for a failing school. Private schools are super expensive in Montgomery. So you take, that military family, they're like any of us. They don't want their child to go to a failing school, right? I mean, if my child was in a failing school, I would figure out another option. And, so if they decide to go to a private school and they take CHOOSE Act funds, the Alabama High School Athletic Association says, oh, wait a minute, you can't play sports, right? We're going to penalize the child on this and make them sit out a year. Now, if you're well off And you don't need the Choose Act funds because the first 2 years it's targeted towards the population that it's still really high, right? I think it's like 170, 180,000. But if you can afford to pay for your children and you're not using the Choose Act, they say, oh, wait a minute, that child can play. So I want you to think about that for a second. So now military family moves in, they don't take Choose Act dollars. Hey, you can play if you take Choose Act dollars. And so what they're doing is trying to dilute school choice and use sports to do that. Because I can tell you this, my kids play sports. I got twin boys that are sophomores. They'd be crushed, right, if they couldn't play. And the fact that we're penalizing families in this state to do that, that's why you saw such an uproar, right? And the thing that's frustrating to me, and I want y'all to understand, the governor's office, our office, the speaker's office, and hats off to Speaker Ledbetter. He's led on this great. We had legislation. We said, hey, y'all are breaking the law, by the way. One, we don't agree with it. Two, you're breaking the law. And then they said, okay, we're going to hold an emergency meeting. Well, in my mind, they're going to fix what they did. They came out and doubled down and said, no, we're not going to allow this. That's why you saw the governor file an injunction. And I said, okay, we're going to take you on. We're going to change this, and we're going to put normal people on the board to where we can have oversight over this group, and we're going to make sure that, oh, by the way, they don't know what's coming yet. If you're watching, here it comes. But, we're going to make sure that Legislative Council, has authority over what they're doing, because the Alabama High School Athletic Association right now is dangerous because there's no accountability, right? And they're sitting there breaking the law, and the judge is going to strike it down. There's no doubt, right, because it's clear. But it's a problem in our state. And look, they've got a lot of problems, right? But it's just something that, when you don't have any checks and balances, you run into a problem. And I understand we're not trying to get schools to recruit, but let's be honest, that goes on even in public to public right now. And so what we want to do is just have a fair playing field. And the idea on school choice is the parent decides what's best for the child, and they shouldn't be punished by having to sit out a year, right? That's not, the goal is to, one, to have a good education. But let's remember about sports. Most people aren't going to make a living in sports. It teaches life lessons, right? And so I think it's real important we allow students to play. And, and we had things in place to protect where you can't recruit and you can't do that. But it was frustrating on that. And but we're going to get that solved with the legislature. And I think short term, and that's a longer term fix, because there's a lot of problems with the Alabama High School Athletic Association. And I think, here's the deal. I think we need to get some other people involved throughout communities that are parents, right? That, maybe aren't necessarily coaches, that all they care about is making sure that they win their game. And that's maybe not always the best perspective. So we're going to work on that and get it done.
Awesome. So obviously there was, and it's been kind of a very bizarre thing that's happening in our state, at least for me, who's not been entrenched in state politics for decades. There has not, like, outside of people who were already incumbents, the opportunity for really good, really conservative people to go win an open seat, lots of them. I guess it was rare. Like, you jumped in and ran for lieutenant governor, and I don't think a lot of people thought you were going to be able to win, and they came after you like crazy, and you ended up pulling it off. And so that was, pulling out all the stops for your ability to win. But now, all of a sudden, you look at what's going on, and you have, for the United States Senate race, you've got two extremely conservative guys. It's like, man, if it ends up being one of those two guys, you can't lose. Even Jared Hudson in that is a great guy. And then you go down to Attorney General with Catherine and Jay and Pam, and then you go down to, even some of these other races. You're seeing all these, like Catherine and Andrew or something, right? Or not Catherine, Caroline Dobson and Andrew, thank you. Words. Really, really, really good people that are going to win. I've just not seen that. And it looked like that's what it was going to be in the governor's race. It looks like it was going to be Will Ainsworth versus Tommy Tuberville. And you made the decision to bow out very respectfully, endorse Coach, and agree to help him. Talk about your decision-making there.
Sure, yeah, great question. I get asked that a lot. And, so first, let me, I was at Auburn back when we used to win a lot, so that was fun, from 99 to 03. And if y'all remember Fear of the Thumb that he did, right, it was the good years in Auburn football for sure. So I knew Coach then. When he ran for Senate, I was the first elected official in Alabama to endorse him. And so I've known him. I think he's done a great job in D.C. I never was planning on running against Coach, right? I'll be honest, I never thought he was going to run for governor. I thought he would stay in the Senate or do something in the Trump administration, but we got a good enough relationship. I went and talked with him. I mean, Bryan and I talked, and for a while, nobody knew, right? So I was planning to run for governor. I mean, and, full transparency. And then, when he decided he wanted to run for governor, he's like, hey, why don't you consider running for the Senate? For me, it just wasn't the right time, and my heart's in Alabama. To be honest, I think it's wonderful what him and Katie are doing in D.C., but every time I go to D.C., I'm thankful I live in Alabama. So, it was not something I really wanted to do. And so with the age of my kids, being sophomores and then also in 8th grade, by the time the election rolled around, Hunter and Hayes would be January of their junior year if I won. And then my daughter would have been, freshman, right? And, that would have been challenging to pull them out when they play baseball. Hey, we're going to move to Montgomery. And so it just looked like to me this was a God thing saying, hey, Will, you need to wait. 4 years. I don't know how long Coach is going to be governor. I think he'll certainly win. I'm hosting a fundraiser for him Thursday night. I mean, I'm all in to help him. And he's a strong conservative. I think he's going to leave a legacy of recruiting industry in our state. I mean, he is an incredible salesman. He knows how to recruit, and I think, I'm certainly going to help him do that, and I think our state will be in good hands. And then, but I'll say this. I don't think you've seen the last of me on the ballot. I'll be back, and, just for me, I was term limited as lieutenant governor, and I've got plans to do some other stuff I'll talk about, but, certainly going to help him, and I think he'll do a good job and encourage all y'all to support him.
Awesome. And I really admire the way that you handled that situation. There's a lot of different ways that, some people may have, and I really thought you handled it exceedingly well. So another thing that you popped up in the headlines recently, the incredible publication that is ALDOT Commie, is what I call them, wrote some negative things about some comments that you made. So again, let's just back up and set the stage, okay? A couple years ago in Brentwood, Tennessee, a trans girl, I can't even keep track. They're like, trans girl. I'm like, okay, does that mean it's a boy that's pretending to be a girl, or is a trans girl a girl that's transing to a boy? Like, I'm always just like, anyway, trying to figure that out. And so whatever that was, went into the school and killed a bunch of people, okay? And what kind of school was it? Christian school, okay, that matters, okay? And then recently, there was another trans thing. I don't know, again, boy, girl, girl, boy, I don't know what was going on there, had red hair. Went into a school and shot up a bunch of people. What kind of school was it? Christian school, okay. And we're starting to notice a pattern. And noticing patterns can get you in trouble, I've learned. And most people, when they're sitting in at the deer camp, or they're sitting out back smoking a cigar, and conservative guys will be like, I can't believe that, that's so this, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Very few of them are going to come out, specifically in a position of public office, and not hint around it, this is kind of bad, and we're going to have to take a look at this, but go straight at it and call it out for exactly what it is. And you did that, and that's what I'm saying. Principled conservative, courageous conservative, and you spoke your mind, but you weren't just lashing out. It was it was very principled point that you made. Talk about the comments you made in the backlash.
Yeah, so for that, it came from biblical truth, right? God created male and female, and to me, that created an uproar, which is, sad, honestly, the fact that created an uproar and the amount of hate and threats we got from that. But to me, I just believe this, right? I really think we got to continue to fight on this, and, to me, if somebody's dealing with transgender issues, yes, as Christians, we still love them, we want to help them, but I think we also got to be realistic that they're struggling with serious mental health issues, and they need help, right? And so when you talk about mental health problems in our country and identifying that, I view transgenderism as a mental health disease, and they need help. And look, I'm not talking down to them. I think they deserve, the love of Christ just like anyone else. And as Christians, we want to try to help them, but I also am not going to call out, I'm going to call out when something is just wrong. Right, I'm going to call it out for what it is. And so on that, it was an easy thing to do. But I also think, when you talked about society, allowing things to be okay, right? And you think about just how a society crumbles, at some point in time, and that's what Charlie Kirk, I think, so much of what he did, I mean, I had so much respect for him, but he was able to articulate truth from a biblical standpoint and go on campuses and win arguments and I believe, influence people for the kingdom and make a difference. And I think we've got to continue to have people stand up for truth. And that's really what it is, right? I can't believe the fact that, in today's times, we're talking about that I got to worry about my 14-year-old daughter going in the bathroom and that there might be somebody other than females in the right. We shouldn't have to worry about that. I think when you talk about somebody, wanting to change their gender, that shouldn't be a normal part of conversation, right? We should be like, wait a minute, something's not right. And I think that's really just kind of where I'm at. And sorry if that offends anyone in here, not trying to, but I just think that, it's just, in my opinion, what I called it out, right? I mean, that I really believe it is a mental disease and that they need help.
Yeah. And by us placating and pretending that it's anything other than a mental disease, it's causing people to die. Right? Like, this isn't just it's not us being mean to these people, as you said. I get frustrated with it, and my comments are a little bit more rash probably. But our playing along with it is getting people killed, okay? Assuming the narrative with who shot Charlie Kirk is true. I know. But let's assume that it's true. The boyfriend of the shooter, that was also a boy, was trans, and it's the same ideology. It's not a biological, physical thing. It's literally a spiritual, mental illness that gets into the brain and rots it and fills it with hate and wickedness. And again, we use words. I say flippant things that are mean to them. They shoot bullets at us. That's the difference, okay? It's radically different. And so we've needed people in positions of power, people who are elected, people who put their hand on a Bible and swore to uphold the state constitution, the federal constitution. By putting your hand on a Bible, when you're given that authority, you're doing it in a way that's going to honor God. And we've needed people like you, people like Steve Marshall, who've been there fighting that stuff in our state. So thank you. So we've entered into, as the tribute we did to Charlie Kirk opening this thing, we're entering into new territory. So you go July 13th, 2024, Butler, Pennsylvania, shots ring out, real bullets that actually killed somebody. I say this story all the time, but you had a fire chief that was shielding his children from the real bullets that were flying, and he took those bullets and he died. One of those bullets hit Trump in the head, and he crashes to the ground and he stands up. And Secret Service is trying to drag him off the stage, and he stops them in one of the most iconic political moments in the history, not only of our nation, but probably political history, period, world history, with the flag flying in the background and the blood running down his face, and he pumps his fist, fight, fight, fight. A person who knows what time it is. A person in elected office who knows what time it is. I've labeled this question that I want to tee up to you almost as a headline, but it's Trump, Charlie Kirk, and the path forward. We've moved into a new place of politics. I don't know, did anybody hear Pete Hegseth's speech he gave today, the Secretary of War? Oh my goodness, no more fat officers, no more woke bull crap, just on a tear, and I'm like, yes. And then he's making these recruiting ads that are posted on the White House. Okay, so the White House Twitter handle is like one of the greatest Twitter handles ever now, which is crazy. So on the White House thing, the Secretary of War's office posts this very well-produced military recruiting ad that starts with Pete Hegseth talking to these soldiers, then it goes into tanks and jets and just American raw power. But what's going on in the background is Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, right? And it's what's happening, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think first, it's amazing to see how God works in, different tragedies. And I believe there's a spiritual revival going on that God's using Charlie Kirk's death. How many views of that did you mention? What'd you say?
100 million views on just the memorial alone.
Think about that. That is amazing that many people saw that memorial service where over and over, people talked about Christ and the relationship with him and how to, and so the impact, I think, of that is huge. I think Charlie Kirk long after, his death. He's going to continue to influence people. And then the other thing I think is like it's inspiring new people to step up, right? There's a guy named Bryan Hollyhan that's at Auburn, Alabama, right? War Eagle. So we got a few Auburn fans in here, don't we? So I was one of his first interviews. He was a little bitty kid, like in maybe middle school or elementary school, had glasses with tape on him. We were talking about it. And I mean, I'm not going to tell him no. He's like, he emailed me or something at the lieutenant governor and said, can I interview you? And I said, sure. I mean, like this kid wants to do that. Now he's got a chance to be similar to Charlie Kirk, right? And like he's making a difference. I sent him a message today when, I was traveling, and I said, hey man, keep making a difference for the kingdom. God has given you this platform, and like continue to use it, and just everybody is rooting for you. And he's going to speak to 10 different campuses through Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point. And it's just neat to see how God's using other people, right? They had normal requests for, campuses, campus engagement, it'd be, 5 or 10. I mean, it's like thousands, right, of new chapters that are going to open up across this nation. So I think, look, let's call it for what it is. Evil's out there trying to silence voices. They tried to kill our president. They tried to kill the leading young conservative voice, and they did. I mean, with him, unfortunately. But I think the blowback on that is now you've got a whole generation that's got to hear the gospel, and then you've got new leaders coming up. And I'm very confident that America is going to stay great. And it's because of, Republicans, conservatives, Christians stepping up to the plate and making a difference. So, no, there's not a lot of, and I don't mean this disrespectful, not a lot of young people here, but I'm confident and have been encouraged, right, by the young generation and how they've responded to this. I didn't quite realize the impact Charlie Kirk had on young people until I started looking at my Facebook page, my Instagram, my Twitter, and I was like, whoa. I mean, there's people mad and upset, and it's righteous anger, right? And they're wanting to make a difference. So I'm encouraged that the next generation, that this has just unleashed a whole group of conservative young Christians that are going to make a difference on their high school campus, college campus. Parents are going to be, engaged. And so I'm excited, I think, for, what's going to happen in the future. And obviously was devastated. I don't think I've felt that way since 9/11 maybe. Just like the feeling I felt inside, and I was in college then. But I think, again, God is using that in an amazing way, and it's exciting to see.
Amen. I when I watched him get shot, and you got to go back to that week, and in Alabama especially. So Sunday, there was a sweet lady. She was a veterinary professor at Auburn University. She was in bovine veterinary school or whatever, and she was jogging, and this guy jumps out of the bushes, tries to kidnap her and do God knows what. And again, she was a bovine vet, so he wasn't having a lot of luck, is my guess. I haven't seen the reports, but couldn't. And so he turns around and stabs her to death. And then that news kind of breaks Monday. So we're seeing that Monday, this guy who stabs her to death and steals her truck. Then the next day, we see video footage of a giant black guy stabbing a little Ukrainian blonde girl to death and watching her drown in her own blood. And we all watched that on camera. And then the very next day, we watched a bullet rip through Charlie Kirk's neck and watched him die. And man, and that was a very hard week. That was a very, very hard week. And my daughter Gracie is here, and I was sitting on the front porch trying to work to distract myself, but the weight of it was just there. And she comes, and again, I don't let my kids listen to Tom McDonald very much, if you know who he is, but there's a couple songs that he does well, and he did a dedication song to Charlie Kirk, and she said, here, Dad, play the song, and I played it, and my kids have never seen me cry. 7 kids, they've never seen me cry, don't do it, and I just melted, just tears, literally, sobbing, just tears just coming down and can't stop, and Gracie just squeezed me, and it's like, what is happening? God is doing something. I didn't know Charlie. I know a lot of these famous people in the media world. I never got to meet Charlie. but it affected me that deeply. And I thought, oh, it's because I'm in media and I'm a truth teller and I'm out kind of putting myself out there, and maybe that's why. And then I see all these other people who don't do this that were affected the same way. And it's just, I don't know. And all I can think is that I'm not Catholic and I don't know what qualifies someone to be a saint. But if I was, I would make Charlie a patron saint, okay? I mean, look at the husband he was. Look at the father he was. Have you ever seen Charlie without a smile on his face? Find me one video ever in his entire career where he didn't have a smile on his face. And they killed him. But God is going to take that. I preached this last Sunday on the pattern that God uses of humiliation preceding exaltation. And you look at the cross and you see the Lord Jesus Christ and the things that he went through, where he was whipped and nailed to a piece of wood, where he couldn't breathe, and he goes through the most humiliating thing, and then God crushes him. He takes the place of sin, and God crushes him as he took the place of sin, so that we didn't have to go through that. But then he rises from the dead, right? It's this humiliation and then exaltation. And we see Charlie Kirk, this person. If there was ever a person who didn't deserve to be shot in front of their wife and children, it was Charlie, but that's what happened to him. And now God's doing this thing. I'm not comparing him to Jesus and saying that this is a resurrection, but it's that same pattern that we see from this death, that God is bringing forth this mighty thing that's going to change America, and I would argue the West, forever. And so it really is beautiful. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. So... what are you going to do next?
Yeah, so I get asked this a lot. So a lot of thoughts, prayer went into this. So I'm going to start a group called Alabama Forward, and we're going to work on issues to move our state forward, right? I think, in my opinion, we live in the best state in the country, hands down the greatest country. And so education issues, economic development issues, tax issues, military issues, continuing to make sure our state is not woke, that it stays conservative. And so we're going to stay engaged and have some really smart policy people, have some really smart social media people, and we're going to help continue to shape the narrative in our state to make sure that we're the leading conservative state in the country. And that's our goal. And we're going to continue to do that. And what we've been doing in office, and do it from the private sector. I won't be traveling as much, but I'll still be traveling a decent amount, so you'll see me around. But we're going to do that, and excited about it. And I just think there's a huge opportunity to educate the legislature. We're going to have a policy conference every year to where we talk about policy and bring in, a guy like Pete Hegseth, right? And talk about what is the defense industry going to look like in the next 10, 20 years, and how can Alabama adapt, right? I mean, bring in somebody like Marco Rubio, right? And talk about, what is challenges in other countries, right? What do we need to do to make sure Alabama is ready from a cybersecurity standpoint, right? Protecting us, from a defense standpoint, all these different things. It's going to be fun. Excited about that. So I'm going to be engaged. It'll be called Alabama Forward, and I'm not launching that till I get out in 27, but we're going to hit the ground running, because we'll have session that March right after I get in, and we're going to have a really good group of smart people working with us, and the goal is to try to make a difference from a policy, shaping the narrative, shaping the conversation, and we'll continue to be engaged. So that'll be fun. That's what we're going to do.
I'm really excited about that. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think it shows the reason that you are who you are is that most people in that situation, who knows, they would have just disappeared, they would have done whatever, and you came up with this incredible, innovative way to be able to help not only coach, but help the state of Alabama, because you're passionate about creating an Alabama that's better for your children and their children. And so just because you don't get to be governor, you're not going to stop. You're going to continue going, and you came up with this extremely creative, innovative way to do it. And the first time I called you, I was going to try and talk you into I didn't know what John Wall was going to do. Maybe we can make you, chairman, or he's like, no, let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So,
one other thing on that too, I forgot that I think will be really cool and make a difference. And certainly once we get to this point, want some recommendations, but we're going to start a college leadership program for juniors in college. And it's going to be an Alabama Forward Fellows program and it's going to be conservatives, only conservatives are going to get in. And we want to have the next generation of leaders teach them about our state help them be, the next Judge Thomason, right? Have them be, be the next Bryan Dawson in media, right? Maybe, the next lieutenant governor. But we want to raise a generation in college, and there's nothing like that that does that from a conservative standpoint. And so that's going to be a lot of fun, and I think there'll be great opportunities for y'all to be engaged in that and help us get, people that, hey, I recommend this person to be in it. And so that's going to be fun, too, part of what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. Do you want to open it up for questions for anybody? Yes? All right. Any questions, takers?
I mentioned this one time before when you were with us, but I just want to put it out there. I think Alabama Forward, I think it sounds wonderful. In that same vein, Matt Simpson was trying to put through legislation that would provide the death penalty when somebody crosses over and harms a child who's under the age of 12. I just want to go on the record. I wholeheartedly support that. My own sibling was hurt at age 8 by a pediatrician. So do you support that? Can we get that through? And also on a close note also, here in Baldwin County, many of us have been concerned about the grooming books that are projected toward elementary age children in the Fairhope Public Library, but it's not in an adult section where parents can review, is this something I want my child to see? No, it's actually placed right in where the elementary children are seeing these books. So we need some help with this Alabama Forward. Those are my two main concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think Representative Simpson's bill, it's one of my priorities to get past my last session, which will be coming up. We're going to get that done and support them on 100%. And my prediction on that piece of legislation is I think it will pass. All right. As far as the libraries, I'm with you 100%. That junk doesn't need to be there. And I think you're getting ready to have a governor that's going to shut that stuff down. So it'll be good.
Amen. Swiftly and consistently executing pedophiles. Amen. I don't think there's anybody that's going to argue with that one. Next question.
I would just like to say I would rather you be governor.
Well, thank you. Maybe one day, right? I mean, I think, like I said, I think at some point in time, certainly. I mean, we'll see what God's plans are. Assuming I'm healthy, children are healthy, everything's good, right? I mean, I think at some point in time, I would definitely, my plans are to, still have a desire to run for governor because I love Alabama and think having a strong executive, you can make a big difference and change people's lives. And that's kind of what motivates me. I think you got one life to make a difference. You better make a difference while you're here. And so certainly I want to continue to do that. And, if God opens that door, I certainly would be open to run. And, I think that would, but we'll see. I mean, right now I'm good where I'm at. I feel a total peace with it. And I think Coach will do a good job. And I plan on, helping him to make sure he's successful his entire term. And so look forward to it. Be good.
Awesome. I know you guys have questions. There you go. Man in the back.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest hole.
Can I state the question so they can hear it on the podcast or whatever? So why haven't we gotten a bridge from Mobile to Baldwin County? And is there a federal play? Is that what you asked? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think when you look at that and talk to some people that have been involved from the construction engineering side, and I think, look, and I don't mean this disrespectful to the guy, but I think John Cooper will go down as one of the worst ALDOT directors in our state's history. And because of that and him not listening to people, this thing could have already been done for a quarter to a third of the cost, right? But because he was stubborn, didn't listen to people, that, because I just believe, look, you got to listen to people. That's something my dad always taught me, right? Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you in areas of your, weaknesses, and you'll be strong, right? And so I think in that situation, he didn't do that, and it's just drug on and drug on. You got these environmental studies and all this stuff going on that's a problem, and the cost is escalated. All right, so do I think it will get done? Absolutely. So I think the I-10 bridge, in my opinion, and I think most elected officials, is the number one project that needs to be completed in our state, right? I think the challenge is, just honestly, and I've talked about this, is, you look at, the West Alabama corridor being, 1.3 to $1.5 billion of all state dollars. We could use that money for I-10. We could have used that for what I wanted to do on 65. So, when I say that, I'm not just throwing that out there that I think he's bad. I just think the decisions they made are going to be tough for the next administration to get things done. I mean, I've talked to Coach Tuberville about this, and, because of, Director Cooper's leadership, I think he's failed our state on that. And I honestly don't know why, and I don't why Governor Ivey has kept him on as long as she has. So I'm just shooting you straight on that one. I mean, that's really what's happened. Do I think it'll happen? Yes. I think it's been delayed because of poor leadership.
Anybody else? Going once.
I heard that your plan is before you leave office to extend the Beach Express to 65. How's that looking?
Oh, I don't think I can do that. I mean, I think I'm for that, right? So she said about expanding the Baldwin Beach Expressway from where it currently is to 65 before I get out of office. Now, I wish I was that good. But yeah, I mean, I think here's what I think we need to do on transportation in our state. That should be, I think we need to base transportation on need, not on politics, and make sure everybody understands that. And so we need to have a plan that transcends whoever's in office, where we can continue to get projects done. And to me, one of the greatest needs, right, the amount of tax dollars that Baldwin County brings into the state is huge. You got people coming from Lieutenant Governor from Oklahoma, a buddy of mine, he comes down 65 and goes down to our beaches. He loves it, right? But we need to continue to stay ahead of the growth and help people get in and out. And so I think certainly that's something that, I would encourage whoever the next governor is, which I believe is going to be Governor Tuberville, to make sure that he gets a plan and gets that started. But that's a multi-year, 2, 3, 4 year deal to get that done. But I think certainly it can be done. And I think it should be a priority because I think it's probably a top 10 project in our state that needs to happen.
Awesome. We'll call that a wrap. Will Ainsworth, thank you.
Always good to be on. Thanks for what y'all do. Absolutely.
All right, and before I do my formal close, because we're doing a podcast, and I have my formal close that I have to do awkwardly into the computer the camera while you guys all look at me. Before I do that, Ashley Carter, can you please stand up? She's wearing bright red so that you can find her. Okay, so big hand applause to Ashley, and I'll tell you why. So Ashley is the Vice President of Finance and Events at 1819 News. If you've ever been to our Eric Metaxas Gala, it was arguably the best gala. I mean, everybody that went there, I feel like Trump, everybody said it was the best. But they really did say that. The Tucker Carlson event we're doing, she puts that all together. She's become best friend with Tucker Carlson's assistant. And, the Orange Beach debate that we did that had 1,200 people there, she put all of that together. She also helps me with donor development. And she just does a phenomenal job. And so, see her, please, if you guys, the reason that we're able to do what we do, the reason we're able to hold people's feet to the fire, the reason that we're able to call people out is because we are a nonprofit and we're supported by donors that are citizens. We're supported by people. We are citizen-supported news. We are not funded by the Alabama Department of Transportation like the Alabama Political Reporter is. We're not funded by all these other huge corporations and all this other stuff. We're funded by people, and that frees us to be able to do the work that we do. And so we need your support. And I say that, and people are just like, well, okay, everybody loves 1819, but not everybody's financially supporting 1819. And I want to give you guys the opportunity to join the fight with us, and it's a real fight, and we're getting things done. You've heard what everybody said. The lady in the red jacket in the back is Ashley Carter, and she can help get you signed up to where you guys are making monthly donations of $10 a month, $18.19 a month. See what we did there? $18.19. That was my idea. Pat myself on the back. Anyway, but point being, please go see her. Get signed up to support. Darlene's going to start having a QR code up here at your guys' meetings and stuff so that you do that. So please go do that. We really do need you guys. Okay? So with that, now, as always, until next time, put your trust in God and keep your powder dry.